This week, we will be holding advisory conferences with each of our advisees. And to do this, we've created a different schedule on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday to free up some time to allow these conferences to happen during the school day. In a moment, I'll talk about what you'll do during advisory on Monday with your students. But for right now, let's think about Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, just so we understand how those 3 days work. So on each of these days, tutorial has been canceled, and essentially that time has been moved to before lunch. So after third period and fourth period on these days, you're going to meet with your advisory at 12:10, and you're just going to check in with them for 5 minutes to take attendance. And you're going to hold the student that you'll start conferences with that day and release the rest of your students to lunch. And those other students will have an extended lunch from 12:15 to 1:25. During that time, you can meet with as many students as you want to fit during that time. We've also canceled PD on Wednesday afternoon to free up those 2 hours, or you can meet with students before or after school any days during the week in order to get through each of your advisees. So that's how the schedule for the week works, and advisory will show up on your attendance in Elluminate, so you can take attendance there, and just tutorial won't show up in the same way it usually does. So now I'll take a break and we'll talk about what happens during advisory on Monday. This video will real quickly go through how to prepare and conduct advisory conferences, since we're providing a few different data points than we have in the past. So this sheet is something that Shri created to help us keep track of what should happen before, during, and after our advisory conference week. It also includes the schedule to refer to. And you'll want to just reuse this to prepare for Monday in particular, which includes these 6 points. So I'm just going to go point by point and just show you a few of the artifacts that you'll need. So the first thing you're going to do is distribute, as you usually do, grade reports. These grade reports for advisory conferences are a little different, and they include a few different pieces of data. So let's take a look at what those grade reports look like. So this is a sample student. This isn't a real student. Basically, the top half is the same as it always is. So it has the student's grades, their absences and tardies, all of which are really good points to be able to start a conversation with a student about how they're doing this year so far. And then in the bottom half, we've included a few other data points. The first two over here are the number of RCs the student has had, and if they're 9th and 10th graders, the number of homework center referrals they've been given. And these are great data points we haven't had before to talk about during the conferences, but if you notice this number is high or even low, you can ask a little bit about, like, oh, what has been going on with that? Or, tell me a story of a time you've had a resolution conference with a teacher and how it went. And over here we have the habits and mindset survey results, so basically the ACT survey that students took to self-assess their skills in the second week of school. I don't know if you remember that. We did that during tutorial in the second week of school, and students essentially answered a bunch of questions, agreeing and disagreeing with them based on their own self-assessment. And we've averaged the scores for each of those categories, so each of the habit skills, and we provided the average there. So the closer to 5 they are, the more of a strength that skill is. And remember, this is a self-assessment that they did at the beginning of the year. They'll be taking that survey again soon, but this is also a good talking point to kind of engage them around, it shows here, for example, that time management is your area of growth. What are some things that you do to manage your time? And you could potentially use most of your conference to talk about that skill in particular. So that's the grade report. These will be in your boxes in the morning. On the back side of this will be a set of reflection questions that aren't quite formatted yet, so I don't have them to show you, but you'll want students on Monday to go through and start responding to those reflection questions, and or you can just tell them to do it outside of advisory, but that they have to do it before their conference appointment. You also want to review the bell schedule with them so that they understand to come back to advisory before lunch each day. And then you're going to want to sign people up for their conference times using the sign-up sheet. And the sign-up sheet looks like this. And you can keep it electronic or you can print it out for yourself if you want to record it that way. But we've essentially just created time slots during lunch and after school on each day of the week for you to fill in with student names. And again, no one will need all of these slots, so you can black out or remove times that you just don't want to meet with students, and you can create your sign-up schedule there. And we'd also encourage you to have students then go in their planner or in whatever way they keep track of appointments and times in their calendar to write down their appointment time so that they come to you at the correct time. And this is where you have students look at the reflection questions and start answering them and make sure that they know that attendance to this is expected and required. Then during your conference, you can kind of choose how to approach each individual student. We really wanted to create an open-ended process for you to determine what it makes most sense to talk with your advisee about, whether it's academic purely because they're struggling with their grades and you want to open jump rope and kind of talk through what issues they're having and why they're having them and come up with some next steps. Or perhaps you're choosing just to talk about academic habits because that's an area of growth for them, perhaps because academics is already strong. So just approach it however you'd like using those different data points. And you can also, if you'd like, there's a link here in this sheet to a summer program sheet that Maddie created for us, which essentially has an overview of some summer experiences and options that students have, from summer programs through Wishbone to internships, etc. And you can send this to students electronically by posting on Google Classroom, or you can print it out and hand it to them if you want. Or this can be the topic of your discussion, talking about what they're planning to do this summer. So that's about it. If you have any questions, please do reach out to either your collaborative partner or someone who has done this before if you're new to staff, or you can reach out to myself or your advisory leader for your respective grade. And just one thing to note is some students may miss an advisory conference, and you can choose how to deal with that as you want. But just make sure that we find time to reschedule those, or that students know there's some consequence to that. So have a great advisory conference week.